Harvick! Blaney! Harvick! They spin behind him! It's going to be Blaney!
In NASCAR, most races are determined by fractions of a second. This includes finishes that have led to the greatest moments of all time. These short little time intervals have made for amazing history that has stayed in the history books in all the right ways, while at the same time, there have been short time intervals that have stayed in the mind of many for all the wrong reasons. It has been discussed many times on this platform that NASCAR remains a dangerous sport, no matter how many safety modifications are made in the sport. So much can be done for a car going around a racetrack at almost 200 miles per hour. While it is entertaining to witness and a spectacle when many cars are competing against each other at the same speed, it doesn't always end on an amazing note, as there have been some moments in NASCAR that have remained frozen in history for all the wrong reason. Today, we dive into the darker parts of motorsports racing and look at moments where time froze in NASCAR.
Whoa, whoa, guys, whoa, whoa, oh no, oh my gosh.
And a terrible crash coming to the finish.
This is a big wreck.
Really a terrifying set of circumstances and minutes that seemed like hours.
Fuel. It's one of the main components in having a race car make it to the finish line. Almost all pit stops have one fuel man that comes over the wall to fill the tank up with fuel. It happens so much that many of us forget that gallons of highly flammable liquid is being transferred to the vehicle in under 10 seconds. Due to this, there are bound to be some mistakes on pit road.
And get a decent lap, you see it's going to be 4 fresh Goodyear tires, and you see the flames go up there as they were fueling the car.
Most of the time, fires that happen during a pit stop relatively don't get any larger than that, as there is little fuel being spilled during a pit stop. But sometimes, that is not always the case. On April 24th, 2015, the 8th race of the Xfinity Series season is taking place at the 3/4 of a mile racetrack, Richmond Raceway. The race was running the same as any other race that season, as teams were making a pit stop under the yellow in order to have the best tires and fuel for the next green flag stint. It seemed like everything was going accordingly. That was until a flash of orange could be seen down pit road.
And we have a huge fire on the pit lane. It looks like it's right down around the Eric McClure
We got a guy
pit
on
area.
fire too behind the wall.
Oh my goodness, a scary situation on pit road here at Richmond.
Within an instant, the pit stall of the number 62 team would turn into a fireball as a massive amount of spilled fuel would burst into flames in less than a second. Teams, fans, and commentators were horrified by the incident, as many saw members of the 62 team get engulfed by the flames during the commotion. Immediately, the fire crew would spring into action and put out the fire as fast as it erupted, but many were wondering, where were the pit crew members that were in the fire? What could only be described as pure luck, the pit crew members were not only alive by the ordeal, but mostly okay after it all. Rear tire changer Anthony O'Brien and fueler Josh Whitman would be released from the hospital by the end of the weekend. It was so fortunate that this incident had a relatively good ending, but things could have been a different story if it was 25 years earlier. Back in 1989, safety for the pit crew members was minimal compared to today's age. As long as the fuel man had the pit crew shirt, they would be mostly fine on NASCAR's end. That would start to change after an incident at Atlanta involving the 7-time champion himself, Richard Petty. Same as the previous story, teams were making pit stops to top off on fuel and receive a fresh change of tires. Richard Petty would come down in for his stop during the middle of the green flag run. At first, everything looked just fine. That was until the final seconds of the pit stop. Within seconds, the pit stall went from looking like this to this.
And a fire breaks out in the pits. Now that's something you don't often see in NASCAR. One crewman runs away from this, Now the extinguisher bottles go down onto the gasoline, spilled over the rear of the car. At the back of the pits, one of the crewmen from the team had his clothing on fire for a second. They were able to get an extinguisher on him as well. These powder Purple K extinguishers quickly deal with the fire.
Similar to the 62 team, fuel would spill in the middle of the pit stop and would ignite from a single spark near the end. Within an instant, the gas man would be engulfed in the flames while everyone ran for safety. Fire marshals were on the scene within seconds to put out the flame. However, fuelman Robert Callicut was still on fire behind the pit wall, leading to him being severely burned from the whole ordeal. Luckily, he would survive the incident, but he would be out of action for a majority of the season. It wouldn't be long after this that NASCAR would start mandating more safety protocols on pit road. We talk about how the greatest finishes in history are determined by inches, but when it comes to NASCAR, inches can be the difference between life and death. When people think about the most extreme crashes in NASCAR, many consider crashes at Daytona or Talladega, but not many would consider the half-mile racetrack of Bristol Motor Speedway to have one of the most violent incidents in NASCAR history. Except, that is exactly where this next moment takes place. During a practice session in the Busch Series, Mike Harmon was turning laps in his unsponsored number 44 car. Harmon decided to push the envelope off the corners to see how much speed he could get on the straightaways. It seemed like it was going to be a good lap for the 44 machine. That was until the car would lose control off the exit of the corner. Within an instant, the car would split in two due to the gate between the stands and track becoming unsecured, causing the car to push open the gate and lead to an incredible impact. Mike Harmon would then be fully exposed as the car faced towards the racetrack. Suddenly, the car behind him, driven by Johnny Sauter, would run into the front end of his car at almost full speed. Both cars would sit totaled on the back straightaway. Immediately, a terrible feeling loomed over the racetrack as many feared that NASCAR lost another driver in such a short time period. With an impact like that and another car hitting an open area with an exposed driver, there was little chance for survival. But what only could be described as an act of God, this would be the following scene after the wreck. Mike Harmon would walk away from the car with no injuries from the accident. As it turned out, both impacts on the 44 car would be on the right side and not the driver's side. Turns out the gate was improperly secured when Harmon's car crashed into it, causing it to swing open. To this date, nothing like this has happened at Bristol Motor Speedway. However, the images and few seconds of terror that everyone saw that day will be forever cemented in NASCAR infamy. The history of safety in the sport is definitely a fascinating one, as the sport has come a long way from its humble beginning. With that being said, there is usually a reason why NASCAR has made that safety change, and it's not usually due to the unknown, but from what has already happened. Lee Petty's accident at Daytona was one of the most terrifying wrecks that led to the sport to steer away from guardrails. Even though the wreck ended Lee Petty's career, we can at least say that no one's life was taken that day. The same can't be said for our next moment, and what I feel is the saddest moment in history that changed NASCAR's rules involving driver suits. Fireball Roberts was one of NASCAR's top pioneers in the sport. The Florida native raced in over 200 races and scored 33 victories, including the 1962 Daytona 500. To say that he was a natural in the series would be an understatement. Although he had an act for speed, Roberts was an asthmatic, something that affected him negatively as the chemicals from the flame retardant suits would affect his breathing. Fireball Roberts would get around this issue by wearing a cotton suit rather than one with flame retardant chemicals, which at the time felt like a good alternative. However, it would lead to his final race of his life. On May 24, 1964, the annual World 600 would take place at Charlotte Motor Speedway, where Roberts would start in the middle of the pack in his 206th race in the NASCAR Cup Series. It would only be 7 laps into the race where the tragic incident would take place.
Just 7 laps into the event, 2 drivers would be thinking about a different race. This one for survival.
Just as I did, I looked and saw Fireball was coming out of his car, trying to get out of it. And the first thing he said when I got to him, he was conscious, he was not injured in the wreck. He said, "Oh my God, Ned, help me, I'm on fire."
On the back straightaway, legends Junior Johnson and Ned Jarrett would collide with each other in front of Fireball Roberts, forcing him to steer towards the infield part of the racetrack. This would allow him to miss the 2 cars in front of him, but consequently, it sent him in a tailspin towards the inside wall. This led to the rear of the car to hit the inside wall, causing the car to flip over and catch on fire, all while Fireball Roberts was still in the car. Within the flames, Fireball Roberts could be heard screaming for his buddy Ned to come and help him. It was a scene like no other. Out of pure desperation and adrenaline, Ned Jarrett would hop out of his car and free Fireball Roberts from the wreckage, leading to Ned to suffer from minor injuries. The same could not be said for Fireball Roberts, as he sustained 2nd and 3rd degree burns throughout 80% of his body. He was in critical condition, but still alive. At first, it seemed like the Florida native could make a recovery from the incident, but sadly, Robert would develop pneumonia and blood poisoning from his burns, leading to him slipping into a coma and passing away on July 1st of 1964. He was only 35 years old. After this, NASCAR worked tirelessly to make sure that something like this would never be duplicated again in the sport. NASCAR required all drivers to wear fire-retardant suits, as well as change the fuel cells to include a tear-resistant rubber bladder filled with void foam to eliminate fuel spillage and explosion ruptures. Today, Fireball Roberts' legacy lives in NASCAR history and is known as one of the greatest pioneers to race in the sport. Unfortunately, his last moments in the sport would be some of the most terrifying moments that many fans wish that they could forget. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. This was something I wanted to make for a long time, and I hope that you guys really did enjoy it. I have a few more stories that I want to share with this kind of tone, so let me know if you'd like to see more of these types of videos, as well as what other stories you would like me to share on this channel. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and above all guys, you all take care.